All right, so what I want to talk about today is actually titles. Just a few days ago, the titles for the episodes for Daryl Dixon Season 2 came out. And I will say that I have not done a deep dive into this, but me and my fellow theorists, W.D. Way and Daryl Jones, we're talking about it, and right off the bat, we came up with some awesome stuff. We were like, whoa, you know. I'm sure we will find more as we deep dive into it, so I will probably revisit this at some point in the future. But there was a post. I don't know if this is an official account or not, but I believe that these are the titles. These have been released as the official titles for Season 2 of Daryl Dixon. They are all in French, much like in the first season. And I'm not going to try to pronounce all of them. I took French a long time ago, but I will probably slaughter these if I try. So we will read them in English. The first one is The Kindness of Strangers. Moulin Rouge is a famous movie, so it means the Red Windmill. The Invisible, Paradis for You, Wanting His Power, Goodbye Children. So what we realized pretty quickly is that these are movie titles. So there are films that have these titles. We discussed that with Goodbye Children being a title, that really might support the idea of Laurent being kidnapped. Also, though, I think it probably has a lot to do with Carol's storyline. I mean, Goodbye Children, okay, as morbid as it is, that could almost be like a statement of a theme of Carol's arc, because she's lost so many children around her, and that's really awful, but that's what jumps to mind for me. The Invisible, Daryl Jones talked about how Father Gabriel's speech, specifically when Tyrese was killed at his funeral, he talked about what is seen, what is not seen, temporary versus physical, all of that. So that could be a reference to that. But The Invisible is actually an opera. The Kindness of Strangers is a film. That was one that I looked into, and again, I did not deep dive into this, just very briefly looked over the plot. The Kindness of Strangers has to do with a woman who was in an abusive marriage, so that does seem like it might be symbolic of Carol's arc. But it seems to me that the plot of these films has something to do with either the past of Daryl and Carol, with their pasts, or with their emotional arcs in some way. With that being the case, I'm massively side-eyeing Moulin Rouge. It's one of my favorite films. The Baz Luhrmann, I don't know if there's more than one Moulin Rouge movie, but Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge has Nicole Kidman in it and Ewan McGregor, and it's a musical. They sing. So the fact that that is a musical, we have that as a musical. We also have an opera, so there's two musical stories that are films that we're seeing being used for titles. And with Moulin Rouge, it's a story about a poor man who falls in love with a courtesan, and then she dies, and there's a lot of singing involved, and it's very much like a true love story. That just feels like a template of Beth and Daryl, at least up until Coda. And of course, that's another thing we could say about Daryl carrying the guitar in the trailer. We did look into Daryl Jones looked into Wanting Is Power. Now this, if you look into the description, so what we have here is basically like a poster for it, right? And it says, the story of a boy whose real alarm clock was his love for a girl. And when he woke up, and then it kind of has a dash and an exclamation point. This is really jumping at us for a lot of reasons. I mean, a boy, his love was for a girl. I mean, there's that. But the woke up thing, waking up, is a big theme, all right? I mean, we've got Beth waking up at Grady. B or C for Effort, her music video, and the way that she seems to die at the beginning, and then it shows her waking up exactly like she did at Grady at the end. That's always been like a big one for me since that came out. And I'm also reminded of Denise before she died. Remember, before Dwight shot her in the eye, which was part of the serious symbolism. We know she was a big proxy for Beth. But right before she got shot, she was saying that to Daryl and Rosita. She was going, if you don't wake up, and then she was shot. So, I don't know. I feel like I need to think about that a little bit more in terms of the symbolism. Like, death and maybe it's just a resurrection thing. Death and then waking up are being very heavily entangled in the TWD symbolism, especially around Beth. And I guess waking up after death is resurrection. So maybe it's just a way of putting forth resurrection symbolism. But this just feels very much like that to us, this particular movie poster. It says that originally it was called Alarm Clock, but I'm going to read it one more time. The story of a boy whose real alarm clock was his love for a girl. And when he woke up, and then it just sort of trails off, you know. I don't know. I almost want to go back to something that I said in one of the Asks videos when I was talking about, you know, the kind of emotionally charged line that people are having trouble with between Daryl and Isabel, where he almost seems like he's fishing to see if she's interested in romance. And I said I think he kind of was, not because he's in love with her, but because he's so lonely and he's just looking for companionship. I almost feel like they're going to use this as a theme, even when he's sort of looking for that love or offering it. It's not real, true romantic love. And when he meets Beth again, it's going to wake him up to that or something. Something along those lines. That maybe Beth already did wake him up to that in season 4 because he'd never felt that way about anyone before. And I remember Norman talking about the way he phrased it. He said, no girl has ever been nice to Daryl before. But I think, you know, we've talked about this lots of times, that that can't be literally true because we've seen other people be nice to Daryl. You know, Carol's nice to Daryl, Rosita's nice to Daryl, Denise was nice to Daryl. So it's an odd thing for him to put it that way, but I think Norman was trying to put it in such a way that he was trying to show that it was romantic without actually saying that, basically. Anyway, so let's see. We talked about that one. That was super interesting. Moulin Rouge is super interesting. The Paradis one is a song, and Gladriel Jones looked these up for us. I will put them on the screen. One day, far from the noise of the cities, pop, pop, I saw under a blue sky, pop, pop, the sea surrounding an island, pop, pop, where happy people lived. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king. In a corner of Tahiti over there, I found paradise, believe me, life ain't hard, pop, pop. We're more or less fishermen, pop, pop. We don't have a home, pop, pop. We sleep here or elsewhere. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king. In a corner of Tahiti over there, I found paradise, believe me. Skip down a few lines. It's always Sunday there. Flowers, we see them everywhere. The fruits make the branches bend. Just raise your arm. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king. Wow, I cannot say that. In a corner of Tahiti over there, I found paradise, believe me. You could pull a lot of interesting symbols out of here. I mean, even if they're using this as a title for one of the episodes, then clearly it pertains to what's going on. It pertains to the Daryl spinoff. We have the island reference. You know, we have talking about other countries, being fishermen. Fish in the sea have always been a big one. We don't have a home. That definitely feels like it applies to Daryl and Carol here. Just really, really interesting. So yeah, you can kind of read into that how you would like. So the Goodbye Children one is a film about, let me find the description here, based on the actions of a French priest and headmaster who attempted to shelter Jewish children during the Holocaust. We could go into a lot more of the details and read into it. Like I said, I have not deep dived into all of these, but we could. But again, my fellow theorists have actually talked about this before, how there are a lot of World War II parallels, especially when it comes to saving children, getting the children out. We've talked about the black and white theme. There was a famous French mime who you guys would recognize a picture of him where he wore the black and white horizontal stripes on his shirt. And he is known famously for getting children, Jewish children, out and saving them during the Holocaust. And there's been more than one reference to this in The Walking Dead. So, you know, during the ones who lived and also to some extent during The World Beyond, there is a lot about the children being kidnapped, and we're not sure exactly why that is. There's various reasons that are put forth, but there's probably a lot more to it than we're seeing. Personally, I think that it probably has something to do with the research. Children who were born after the turn and after the Walker virus came about will all have it in their blood in a different way than people who were just infected beforehand. And so I think that they're experimenting on kids, and I mean, they probably think that they're doing something good, like they're trying to ensure that the children survive and that, you know, tomorrow and generations on will survive and all that, but they're probably doing it in a really shady way that's actually harming people, because that's what we see over and over again in The Walking Dead. So yeah, this definitely seems to back up the World War II parallels and something going on with the kids, and possibly that Laurent is going to get swept up in that. So that's really interesting. I think that's about all we talked about, but yeah, so these are the titles, and like I said, I'm sure that we will deep dive into them a little bit more, but definitely interesting, and we know that they choose these things on purpose and that there's all kinds of symbolism. So I think my contention for right now is just that the plot of each of these films is relevant in some way, either to what's happening in the show or to possibly Daryl and Carol's arcs, which can include what's happened in the past, and which very well may encompass Beth. So here's my question. Moulin Rouge. I got to go back to the love story. I just got to do it. It's pretty obvious in a lot of these how they might be related. I mean, if something happens with the children, if we see that again, or with Laurent, that's why they used Goodbye Children, okay? If, you know, the gentleness of or the kindness of strangers, excuse me, is about a woman who was in a very abusive marriage. Clearly, that is a reference to Carol and her arc, and we know that because she's going to be hallucinating Sophia, we're gonna be dealing with a lot of Carol's demons and Carol's issues and things that we know are in her past. So my question with understanding that is, what does Moulin Rouge pertain to? If Daryl and Isabel are not a thing, and Daryl and Carol are not a thing, why are they using the name of a film about a love story? Especially one in which the male half of the couple lost the female half. And oh, she had a beautiful voice, by the way. Think about that. Also, remember I talked about several videos back when it came to the guitar that Daryl might be, you know, we might be in some way fulfilling the whole, I have never sung out in public before. If Moulin Rouge is a template for something, and Daryl is the male character, well, guess what? Ewan McGregor has an incredible set of pipes, too. He sang all through that movie. So it kind of also suggests that we might be seeing Daryl sing, whether literally or symbolically, in some iteration. So, yeah, anyway. These titles made me happy. They made me excited. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on them. Feel free to do your own deep dive and tell me what you found, and I'd be happy to share it. And yeah, once again, we don't have too much longer, just a few more weeks now, until the season starts, and I am super excited for it. So that's all I've got for today, but I'll be back soon. Bye, guys.